Good morning, everyone. We are so glad to have you here today. As we mentioned last week, today is daylight savings. So, yeah, we're watching the door to see who shows up. Really, it's going to be who shows up as we're ending, and we'll know who really didn't pay attention. But we are still here, and we are so glad to be together to enjoy this time as a family, as a community, to celebrate the love that we share. Right now, we're going through a series looking at the love of God that Jesus proclaims. We've seen it in the Old Testament and what God says, and then we see the way that Jesus continues to amplify that. And so that's going to be the theme of what we talk about, our songs and our readings. So we're going to start with the song, Hear, O Israel, if you'll sing along with us.
Hear, O Israel. Love the Lord thy God with all of thy heart. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all of thy soul. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all of thy
join me in saying the Lord's Prayer together? Our Father in heaven, may your name be holy. May your kingdom come. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Do not lead us into a time of testing, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours forever. Amen. This morning our reading comes from Psalm 119, which is famous for being the longest psalm in the whole Bible, and all of it is centered on God's law or teaching. And it sounds a little odd to us how much the psalmists proclaim their love for law, which, laws are good, but in general it's not our favorite thing. And so that's going to be part of what Gary talks about today is how does Jesus understand the law? And what are we talking about? We're talking about teachings, right? Is it meant to restrict us, or is it meant to give us life? But we'll wait to see what Gary has to say about that later. For now, let's read this part of Psalm 119. If you'll follow along, the lines in yellow. May your unfailing love come to me, Lord, your salvation, according to your promise. Then I can answer anyone who taunts me, for I trust in your word. Never take your word of truth from my mouth, for I have put my hope in your laws. I will always obey your law, forever and ever. I will walk about in freedom, for I have sought out your precepts. I will speak of your statutes before kings and will not be put to shame. For I delight in your commands because I love them. I reach out for your commands which I love, that I may meditate on your decrees. Let's continue in song.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence Jesus, keep me near the cross, there a precious fountain, free to all a healing stream, flows from Calvary's mountain. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Near the cross, a trembling soul, love and mercy found me. There the bright and morning star sheds its beams around me. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Near the cross, O Lamb of God, bring its scenes before me. Help me walk from day to day with its shadow o'er me. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Near the cross, I'll watch and wait, hoping, trusting ever, till I reach the golden strand, just beyond the river. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river.
Good morning. If anyone's like me, you maybe semi-like the feeling of being in control. It's one of my favorite feelings, honestly. And I not only like feeling control, I like being in charge, and I like having established plans far in advance, and I especially like for those said plans to go off beautifully, hence why I had children. But when I was a kid and plans or something would change, my mom would always tell me, put on your flexible pants. And it was this virtual saying, and Mom's not here so I can mimic her. But when she would say, put on your flexible pants, it was her way of saying, chill out, right? Because I love, from a small child, I love orderliness. I love waiting in lines. I love it when lines are straight. I love it when people follow cultural rules, and timeliness is so important. And all of those things, I think, came with me at birth, is what Teresa would say. So today, Gary's going to preach about the relationship between law and love, as Chris was saying. And for me, it all boils down to my sense of control over the situation as to whether I think love or law should be displayed. You see, I personally don't think I would have been an OG apostle in the biblical times, because for thousands of years before Jesus, law was seen as the first priority, with love maybe coming second. And as someone who innately kind of loves laws and rules and all the things, I don't think I would have done well as an apostle. And so when Jesus shows up, he flips the order. He changes the script. He changes the innate relationship between law and love. The New Testament emphasizes that love is the way of life now. And the Bible says clearly that when we love God and other people, that we are fulfilling the law of God, which means that the rules that I like to create and control about when Jesus and God should love or when we should enforce Old Testament commandments, that all kind of goes awash. Love is the law of God in action, in everyday action. In Romans 13:10, Paul writes, "Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law." Or it's the fulfilling of the law. So when we talk about the law of God, the way God wants us to live, it's summarized by love. Love for God and loving our neighbor as we love ourselves is what obeying God's love is all about. So today and every day, may we be people who live out God's love through consistent, big and small actions of love to others. Pray with me. Lord, help me to love my neighbors with the same kind of love that you extend towards me day in and day out. Amen.
They're going to walk out this way down the hallway to their Bible time. And as they make their way out, we're going to do our kids' can. They can come and give. All right, she's just heading out. Let's sing as they go. Blue skies and rainbows and sunbeams from heaven are what I can see. When my Lord is living in me, I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. A lot of pockets, got to find the right one, huh? All right, well, I also want to remind everyone else, you can make your offering. There's trays on the two tables there. You can also give online through PayPal if that's more convenient for you. If that's a way that you can support this church, we appreciate it so much. And now we're just going to take a few minutes as we wait for parents to come back to meet and greet. So say hello to somebody you haven't seen yet today. Go get some coffee if you need to, and then we'll come back together in just a minute.
Coming before we head out today, if you are part of the game day, thinking about the game day, it's not actually going to take place today. They took care of some things, so it is not on today. So, I got that right? Okay. And so the game day is not on today. But if you're in the mood of helping out and being a volunteer and putting some, as Katherine said, love into action, then see Heather this morning. Got a project of cleaning a house that needs to be done. And so if you can see her and go and help some people get that taken care of. And then next Sunday is the Lord's Diner service. You can see Susan if that would be an interest to you. Maybe you haven't thought about it in a while and like to hear more about it or something, or just say, yes, I can already help with that. And then on the 26th, we're going to start a new book study. We've been looking at Atomic Habits, and here are some of the choices. Chris has read a number of books, and I've read some, and we've put books that we thought might be of interest to anybody, and these are on the tables. And so if a Wednesday night interest to you, look at these book. You can grab one of these and just tell Chris or I which book that seems the most interesting to you, and we'll get that going the 26th. And then, as has been pointed out, Palm Sunday and Easter are not quite right in here, the date-wise. So it's not that we're going to try to celebrate them at a different time than everybody else does. It just got in there wrong. So notice that. If you will. Let's see. I think that is pretty much good. Spring break, we will have no Wednesday night meeting, so remember that, as Chris and as Katherine said. And thank you so much for your words, Katherine. I'm just going to kind of flow from her sermon into the second one, because that was excellent thoughts and directly in line as we move through this and as we think about the songs. Because what we're trying to do is Chris introduced us to a theme song. Okay? This is what God was trying to tell everybody, that He is merciful, okay? That He is gracious, okay? Slow to anger, abounding in loyal love, faithfulness. That loyal love is hesed. It's that idea of, it's hard to even put into English. Loving kindness is what the King James decided that was a good word, so they made that up, and it's loving kindness, or it's mercy somehow, or it's this extension of goodness that just doesn't stop. Okay? And so that's the theme song, and what we've tried to say is, well, it kind of got drowned out, but Jesus comes on as the crescendo of that, all right? And what I want to talk about today is this what I'm calling lawless love. Okay? And you can probably, your mind can go in a whole bunch of different directions with that, can't you? Yeah, that's what tons of people have come to me and say. If you talk about love, you're going to lose law. Everybody's just going to do whatever they want. And it's going to be a mess. So you can't really talk about love. Okay? You got to make sure, as Katherine said, you got to get that control in there, and you got to get those laws in there. Okay? So you could think of it that way. Okay? And so if you talk about love, it's just going to be a free-for-all. And that's what kind of love means. Everybody gets to do whatever they want. And, of course, nobody's going to choose to do anything good. Right? And so that's kind of the idea of lawless love. Or could it mean love doesn't really need any laws? Love doesn't even really need laws. Because as everybody is loving, and everybody does the loving thing. And the loving thing doesn't have to be controlled. That's who you are. That's what you do. It's the value that you have. I think I've used this example before. I'm driving right over here, and Peterson has those signs, and they start flashing at certain times in the day. It says, go 20 miles an hour if these are flashing. Right? And some people say, oh, that's a good idea. And some people say, well, maybe 25 is okay, or 30. And then you if you're in a hurry, you get frustrated and stuff. What's that there for? It's a law because not everybody is thinking, oh my goodness, I would never want to hurt a child. Could children be running across through here? Well, 20 is probably too fast. And so when we come and we look at these things, what we're talking about when we talk about law, okay, is we're talking about this system of rules with a particular country or community that recognizes as regulating the actions of its members, and which they enforced by the imposition of penalties. Okay? And so when we're talking about laws, we're talking about this is something that you're not supposed to break. And that's decided by, okay, it's regulated and it's decided, and so now then everybody knows this is what you do. And even some are saying, man, you've already broken the law because you have law way over there on the right and it should be on the left, and then you put the thing, okay? So how far does it go? What is the deal? Now, let's don't get thrown off here, because it's not just usually somebody just wants to say, here's some random things that I think you ought to do. Let's see if you can do them. That's what we usually think of God, isn't it? Let's pick that one out. Think they can do that one? As he talks to whoever he talks to. And you think they can do that one? Probably not. Okay, let's see if they can. And so it's just some kind of random. No, as we saw in David, in Psalm 119, he thought the law could do something very important. It brought peace to him. I think Katherine mentioned that, didn't she? That when you have these things in order, when you have these things in, and when you know what you're supposed to do, you kind of, you feel good about that. And so it's not that law is ever well, I guess it can be, but the intention behind most of the people that set up laws is that somehow this will bring order, peace. Okay? And it's not any different now than it was when Jesus was on the scene, all right? But law in Rome assumed something. If you see under there, how does law bring peace? Well, law brings peace by being implemented and governed from the most dominating force, holding those under the law liable. Assuming that what people are punished for, they will avoid. And so therefore you have whoever it is that has been put into this position that is dominating over whatever society that you have, or ever community, or even a family, and they say, this is the law. How are we going to keep the law? Because the law brings order. The law brings peace. So we obviously want to keep that peace and order. So we've got these rules. How do we make sure that people keep the rules? Well, they will avoid breaking them if they are punished. Right? And so when Jesus comes on the scene, thousands of people were being punished to go against Rome in any way. Jesus was not a unique death that he died on the cross. Archaeology has discovered thousands of people were killed. Why? Stay in line with Rome. And remember what we looked at last week? And Caesar says, you will have peace. Just don't step out of line. And so when Jesus comes, and it hasn't changed a whole bunch. Nobody has an exact count of how many laws that we have in our country. But 200 to 600 regulations or changes will be made during each Congress and each Senate year. Okay? Maybe 200 or 600 more will come, sometimes very rapidly, right? And so these regulations and all these things, it changes, but there are some 30,000 regulations that is on the books that can bring criminal offense in our country. Who knows how many Rome had? I was pointing that out to say that that's how people see it. That yes, we got to regulate that. We got to regulate that. We got to regulate that. Why? Because people won't make sure that their food is not contaminated, and so therefore we got to help them understand that nobody wants to eat contaminated food. And so we continue to put in these regulations and these. Well, Rome had many of those same kind of things, and so that's where Jesus comes in the scene. Thousands of laws. Just from Rome. And then you've got Moses. He comes into a very law-based world with Moses lifted up as the lawgiver, as the one that has it. 613 different laws in the book. And thousands of regulations have been added to that. And so you had to have people that they recognize and would say, Moses brings them, but then the powerful authorities or those dominating forces would say, yeah, but the way that you keep Moses' law is that you make sure you do this. And so they would add to that, and they would add to that, and they would add to that, and they would add to that. And by the time that Jesus gets here, there's thousands of laws, and the Pharisees were the ones that kind of felt like they knew them all and kept them. And so when Jesus comes on the scene, this is what he is raised in. The law of Rome and the law of Moses. And the law of Moses. And the thing about it is, when you talk about Moses and you talk about religion, okay, they're going off of the same idea that Rome is. You see? How does peace happen? God is a God of peace. But God gave us the law. So God is a God of law. And so the logic in that is, the way that God is going to keep peace is by giving us this law, and so therefore, he will make us liable to the law, and if we step outside of the lines of the law, we will be punished. Because that's how you keep people from doing or breaking the law. They'll avoid if they know there's a punishment. And so when Jesus comes on the scene, it's declared God is a God of peace, but he's the same kind of peacemaker that Caesar is. And so therefore the law that God gave is thought to be the same kind of idea of the laws that any nation or any country or anybody anywhere puts down. How do you keep them? How do you make sure that people will follow these laws? And so Jesus comes on the scene. He grows up through this, and he comes to realize he is the one that is to represent God. He is the crescendo of this all this law. And who they see God to be, this God of law. He's the God of peace. And so what Jesus comes on the scene and says, yes, God is the God of peace, but he's the God of love. He has a different way of believing that peace can come about. All right? And so what he believes is, love brings peace by God passionately and unendingly pursuing and giving goodness and beauty to all people, believing that when people experience love, they will give it. God believes that if he will love enough, people will finally experience the love. And they'll say, that is so good. I got to give it. I want it. I'll give it. And we know everybody wants it. All the songs, all the world is looking for love. And Jesus comes on the scene, exactly, yeah. And so he does his ministry to try to get this, to drive this home. I'm going to be one that loves. We're not going to step outside of that, okay? And he always has these people coming up and talking to him about law. And one of his apostles is credited to writing what we call 1 John. We've looked at this before. And he says, we know and rely on the love of God has for us. God is love, and whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in him. In this way, love is made complete among us, so that we will have confidence on the day of judgment, because in this world we're like him. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment, and the one who fears is not complete in love. We love because he first loved us. There it is. John came to realize that the only thing that is going to bring peace is love. Everybody participating in this, in the way that love is intended to be participated with. And so he says that it is God. And when we join in on that, we're joining in on something that is different than the normal way people think that peace can come about. Or maybe we could say the only way. And so if Jesus is this crescendo, he's got to do something about law. Because law ain't going nowhere. We've got 30,000. I don't even know what they are. I feel like I'm going to break the law right now just standing here. Okay? So we don't even know. Right? And so therefore, he's got to do something about this law. Because what law has a tendency to do is drown out love. Because love is the opposing reality of how you bring peace. And those who are in the dominating force to set the laws do not like somebody saying that anybody can decide what love is. They want to say what love is. And you better do it or you will be punished if you don't. They quickly move away from what it seems to be loving. And so Jesus has to do something because it drowns us out. Have you seen this skit? Love is kind of like this, more cowbell. All right? You know what it's coming from? Okay, this is Saturday Night Live, and there's Will Ferris, and it's Blue Oyster Cult is the one that had the song. And so it's called Don't Fear the Reaper, which is pretty appropriate because Jesus says we don't have to fear. Okay, never mind. But anyway, listen for the cowbell, all right? Listen for the cowbell in this thing, all right? See if we can get it. Hit go, Donald. Listen for the cowbell. Hear it? Is it? Okay. Okay. I'll go. I did it. Thank you, Donald. Good job. Good job. Now, in the skit, okay, you could hear the cowbell? It's kind of back there, wasn't it? Dun, 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 dun. Okay? And so if we're thinking of it as the law's back there. But the cowbell was just to add something to somehow. It wasn't the dominating force in that. But in the skit, of course, the producer comes out up here in the left corner, and he says, "Guys, this sounded good. Why did we stop?" And the lead guitarist and the singer was saying, "Well, because the cowbell was getting to me." And he goes, "No, guys, this was going to be a take. I know what I'm talking about." He says, "The only thing is, I could use more cowbell." All right? And so he turns Will Ferris loose and he says, "More cowbell." And so he's drinking it all around the whole things. And of course, the whole place, is going, no, this is too much cowbell. That's kind of what happens with law. We need more law. We need more law. We need more law. Why? That's the way peace comes. Well, how does peace come through law? We set these laws, and if you break them, you get punished, and you will avoid the things that you're punished for. That's peace. Right? And Jesus says, no, that's not ultimately peace. And so he tries to bring this crescendo, of love to this massive reality of law. And there's so many different ways to read through the Gospels and see Jesus. And if you're following along, the calendar is Mark, and there's so many different ways to look at it. I'm trying to look at it as I'm going, and just some questions on the back, and you grab one of the calendars if you want to follow along. But we're trying to look and say, what does this tell us about Jesus? But you could go through it and say, how does this contrast what I think about law? What does this contrast what I think about law? And Jesus says, we're not going to look at every single one of these, but you can just go through and begin to see that Jesus says, I'm the completion of law. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Love is the completion of law. It's what Katherine read at the Lord's Supper time. When Paul says, there's only love fulfills it. And so Jesus says, I am the fulfillment of that. I'm the perfect interpretation. Okay? You've always heard it said, but I'm telling you. And so he tries to bring forth that reality to them. Okay? And he moves into this world as saying the law was always trying to apply hesed, the goodness of God. He wasn't trying to put down some things to keep you in line. He was trying to give you more that could make your life better. And so therefore he tries to get them to see that. And so he claims this authority over the law because the Pharisees kept saying, how do you keep saying this stuff? And he says, because I come from God himself. And even though you think my testimony is not true, you need to look at the things that I'm doing and find out. Hesed rules. all right? And so he moves into that reality of it. And so he tries to get us to see that he is the one that rules over all of this. I am the Lord of the Sabbath, all right? Well, what about Caesar? Should we pay taxes to Caesar? Give me a coin. What's on the coin? Caesar's on the coin. You give to Caesar what's Caesar's and give to God what's God's. He's not going to be trapped into that. Of course there's Rome that is set up. Okay? And so when he stands before Pilate, what does he do? He tells him, no authority is yours. You know the authority came from somewhere else. He could be talking about Caesar himself. The only way you have authority, Pilate, is Caesar. Or he could be talking about something greater, and Pilate understood it that way. And he said, you have no authority over me. If my kingdom were a part of this, if my idea of how peace comes were the same way your idea of peace comes, we would be at war right now. We would be at war. And so he tells Pilate, that's not the way I'm going to bring peace. That's not the way I'm going to bring peace. And so he has this non-violent resistance to this. And he finally establishes one law before he goes to the cross. And I think one incident really shows this. His disciples were hungry. They began to pluck the heads of grain and eat. The Pharisees saw it and said, look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath. And Jesus said to them, have you not read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He entered the house of God, and they ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for him or his companions to eat, but only for the priest. Or have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath the priest in the temple break the Sabbath and yet are guiltless? I tell you, something greater than the temple is here. But if you had known what this means, I desire hesed, not sacrifice, you would not have condemned. Listen to this. They had broken the law. And he says they are not guilty. Something new has come on the scene. How can you break the law and not be guilty? Because love is above the law. And somebody who is hungry needing food is more important than any law you might have understood to be in place. And so therefore he says, I am this. So love rules the law. Love rules over the law. We sang it this morning, didn't we? Lawyer comes up and says, what's the greatest commandment? Well, first, hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one God. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, all your strength. Second, you shall love your neighbors yourself. There is no, notice what he does here? He lists two and calls them one. There is no other commandment. There is no other commandment greater than these. And so he's trying to drive this home. And so for us, what I say to myself is, I got to see and hear the difference between a life of law and a life of love. Okay? Let's go a little bit longer here. It only feels like 10 o'clock, right? We just got here. Okay? I got to see the difference. And this is hard to do. As Katherine pointed out, we live in a life of law. And we see the value of laws at times. We understand how that makes sense. But how do these compare? And so if we see this law and order that is given by Caesar, Rome, it's called civilized peace. But no love is needed in order to fulfill this way of peace. You don't have to have love to obey a law. You only have to be afraid you'll get punished. You only have to be afraid you'll get punished. And so what this law does, it upholds itself by this fear of punishment. Love doesn't have to be present for any of this. In any relationship that is based upon law that is afraid of punishment, love does not have to be there. And so what this fosters, what this brings is this dominating control by whoever gets to set these laws. It's an outward compliance possibly, but there's always rebellion and violence. Violence is always going to be the end. Death, for sure. Peace, I guess we could call it that. And the law of religion, which is kind of flowing in the same way, they use what is called righteous peace. In other words, I can make myself right by following the laws. Love is optional. I may really appreciate God like David did, and he writes this long psalm of 119, and I may really appreciate and love God's law, but I don't have to love it. I just have to do it. And when I do it, I'm right. And so therefore it creates this, it's upheld by this self-righteousness and judging others who don't do what's right. And so you have this continually going. Why? This is what brings peace. And so therefore it's upheld by that, and it fosters this pride and this superiority, this legalism. Hypocrisy is obviously there, fear, and finally hopelessness. And so if we can begin to see that, well, what about after Jesus? Aren't there a lot of wonderful things that are going on? Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what we have is law and love, though. And so what has happened is that we have acts of peace. Is it good to go down to the Lord's Diner and serve? Absolutely. Absolutely. And those come about because somehow Jesus has injected into this world the idea that caring about other people is extremely important. Rome didn't care about that. They cared about the law. The Pharisees don't seem to care about that. Your disciples are eating and picking grain, and it's against the law. Okay? But Jesus injects something, and all of a sudden now we have this idea that no. And so what happens is you begin to build this trust in the lawgiver. The lawgiver has given us something to do that is good, to serve each other, to look at each other and take care of each other, to be a part of each other's lives and say, what is it, the need here? See the need. Meet the need. I think that was a big theme yesterday. Okay? And so we see the need and we meet the need. But what happens is law still moves into the front of that. It can. Okay? In other words, let's just say that you're not going to go to Lord's Diner next week. I guess you're just not very loving people, are you? Oh, don't hit home. Okay? And so what happens is this begins to foster good works, yes. It's a step in the idea of love, but it creates this conformity. Oh, yeah, I guess I better go. I want to be known as a loving person, and so now, all of a sudden, it's immature love. Love is not, once again, trying to make you feel guilty because you don't go somewhere and do something. It's not the purpose of love. Love is to fulfill something in your life and to bring beauty and goodness to yourself and to others. And so all of a sudden now, if we're not careful, law still lifts to the top, and the ones that are giving the law are telling us that this is the thing that you do to show your love, but it begins to be a false sense of complete love. Oh, I went to the Lord's Dinner. I guess I'm a pretty loving person. Just look at me. And so therefore, all of a sudden now, we have an incomplete idea of what love is. Love isn't just going down there. Love is something that you move through your life and realize that you are loved and give it out. And so it becomes immature, it becomes incomplete. But when you now go to love and law, you have absolute peace. Love is the law. Love is the law. And if we can grab hold of love, we will always do what's right for the other person and for ourselves. We'll always do the most. And it's upheld by this grace. It's a gift, and it's mercy. And so it fosters this freedom, flexibility of the law. You can't pick grain on the Sabbath. Have you not read that David was starving and he went in and ate the bread he wasn't supposed to eat? What is the lesson? The lesson is love is above law. Get it in your head. Laws don't always present love. And so we got to be flexible. It's hard to think about. Wait a minute, flexibility. I didn't do this. I think Katherine talked about that, didn't she? But it brings harmony. And it brings transformation and the fruit of the Spirit. So, let's see and hear the difference between life of law and life of love. Should have made this a two-parter. One more. Learn and play the love song no matter how loud the law song gets. How loud can the love song get over love? How loud can the cowbell get and drown out everything else? It can get pretty loud. It can get pretty loud. Because love is moving in a different direction than law. Love is actually saying, peace comes in a different way than punishment. And so the one that brings this message of love is the one that law wants to quieten, to put out, to get rid of. And they tried. And yet love rang from the cross. Forgive them. They're just doing what they know to do. It's law. They don't know about love yet. So forgive them. But it doesn't always go in that direction. Just yesterday, we were able to sit with somebody that was at the sit-in in Wichita, Kansas in 1958. Dr. Feasy talked to us about what it was like to go into a place they were allowed to go in, but you would not be served. He told one funny thing. He said there was another restaurant that him and a friend went into, and they sat there, and they kept sitting there, and they kept sitting there. He goes, I guess we'd still be sitting there and not be served yet. I don't know. But this particular sit-in changed things. According to Martin Luther King's book, and Dr. Feasy says, I can't believe that we were actually the first ones. But evidently they're accredited as to being the first ones to bring something different about. And a black person could go into a drugstore and be waited on. It doesn't always end. But oh my, how hard that was, because the voice of existing law screamed out at him. And he said it was so hard to do a nonviolent. He told one of the stories that at the drugstore there was this, what do you call that thing where you go in and it spins, that you go in the door that way, revolving door. And so they got wind, and he said, I was just sitting down to my pie, and I didn't want to leave my pie, but they said, hey, we think we got some conflict going. There's some white guys at the drugstore, and we think there's going to be something happen. And so a lot of them left. He said, I tried to keep eating my pie, but I thought, well, I better go. And so he goes, and at the revolving door, there's a white guy standing just inside of it. And he comes in and bumps the white guy, and he got in really trouble from the president of the organization. That's not what we're doing. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard to step back and see the way that Jesus presented it, as he said, as Dr. Feasy said, the way of love. It's hard, but it can make a difference, and it has. And it has. And it will continue to. So we don't want to give up on this. We want to recognize the differences of these, and we want to grab hold of love at its most, and we want to play that love song no matter how loud the law song gets. Keep playing the love song. Paul wrote a letter. This whole letter was about it. Christ has truly set us free. Free what? Free to love. Free from law. Let's make sure that we stay free. Let's don't get tied up again in the slavery to law. Don't get tied up in it. The entire law is summed up in a single command. Love your neighbor as yourself. You know what he says? There's nothing regulating the Spirit of God. Nothing. You don't regulate love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. You don't regulate it. It's real. And it advances. So he says there is no regulation against these. Live by the Spirit. Lawless love. Laws are going to be around. But love is the dominating force of Christ and God. It's the crescendo. And we can be a part of it. Let us continue to do that. Let's conclude with a participation. It's Psalm 85. In Psalm 85, and after this we'll have a blessing for it. But in Psalm 85, it cries out, God, let us have your faithfulness, your faithful love. And so this video brings up these words, and if you'll just say them together with me as we respond, God, this is not easy. We've lived a long time under the way of law bringing peace. How in the world do we step into a world of love fully, completely? So let's do Psalm 85.
Thank you for that sermon and for challenging us to grow in our faith and our love, maturing our love. It was really a terrific day yesterday. The number of people, about 220 people here to learn to love. And all the booths had at their core helping other people thrive, or in one case, helping felines thrive, which was also terrific. It was an amazing day, and so much thanks goes to Olivia, and Chris was a big part of helping her figure all that out, and then her crew of helpers. It very much flows into our vision that everyone would know that they are loved by God. It very much flowed into our values of humility, equity, acceptance, relationships, and transformation. It was an excellent day. I think she's planning another day in July. Already got a text last night, so come and enjoy that part. Please read the blessing with me. Let no debt remain outstanding except our continuing debt to love one another. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, the law is fulfilled when we love. Go in peace to the fellowship room for some treats.
Excellent
Great
treats.